The Blohm & Voss Bv-141 was a German reconnaissance aircraft built in 1937 that challenged traditional aerodynamics with its radical asymmetric layout. By placing the crew cabin in a separate nacelle to the right of the main fuselage, it proved that balanced flight was fully achievable without a symmetrical airframe, giving the crew an unobstructed field of view. The Grumman X-29 was an American experimental jet flown in 1984 that explored forward-swept wing dynamics. Its forward-pointing wings provided incredible agility at high angles of attack, but created extreme aerodynamic instability that required computerized fly-by-wire adjustments to keep the aircraft controllable in flight. The Vought V-173 was an American experimental aircraft flown in 1942, featuring an all-wing disc body that earned it the nickname Flying Pancake. Its structural design allowed the entire flat body to act as a lifting surface, creating extreme resistance to stalls and allowing the airframe to take off and land at remarkably low speeds. The Caproni CA-60 Transaero was a massive Italian flying boat constructed in 1921 with 9 individual wings arranged in 3 triple-deck sets. Designed as an early attempt at transcontinental passenger transport, its layout represented one of the most extreme multi-wing structural arrangements ever built before single-wing designs became standard. The Mil-V-12 was a massive Soviet aircraft flown in 1968 that remains the largest helicopter ever built. To lift extreme heavy cargo without needing a single gigantic main rotor, its designers placed 2 giant rotors side by side at the ends of large transverse wings, creating an iconic twin transverse rotor configuration. The Fairey Rotordyne was a British gyrodyne developed in 1957 that combined helicopter rotors with airplane wings and turboprops. It used small combustion jets at the tips of its main rotor blades for vertical takeoff and landing, then transitioned to forward wing-borne flight powered by its twin turboprop engines. The NASA 81 was an experimental research aircraft built in 1979 to evaluate an oblique pivoting wing layout. During flight, its entire single wing could pivot up to 60 degrees on a central sweep axis, demonstrating a practical design that reduced aerodynamic drag at high speeds while keeping low-speed handling stable. The Bartini-Beriev VVA-14 was a Soviet wing and ground effect amphibian built in 1972 with a catamaran-like hull and broad high-center fuselage. Designed to operate off water and snow, it trapped a high-pressure cushion of air beneath its broad body to glide just above the surface with high efficiency. The Avro Canada VZ-9 Avrocar was a saucer-shaped craft built in 1959 for military evaluation as a flying jeep. Its circular disc shape utilized a central turborotor to blow air downward through outer vents, attempting to create a stable ground effect vehicle that could operate equally in any direction. The McDonnell XF-85 Goblin was a micro-sized parasite fighter created in 1948 with an egg-shaped fuselage and a 3-fin tail. It was built without landing gear, designed specifically to be dropped from and reattached to the bomb bay of a heavy host bomber while mid-air. The Convair XFY-1 Pogo was an experimental tail-sitter fighter developed in 1954, featuring a delta wing paired with massive cruciform tail fins. It was engineered to sit vertically on its tail casters for takeoff and landing, allowing high-performance jet-era aircraft to operate without a conventional runway. The Snecma C-450 Coleoptère was an experimental French VTOL aircraft built in 1959 that used an annular circular wing. The hollow drum-like wing completely surrounded the engine core, serving as both the primary lift surface and a ducted shroud for the central turbojet exhaust during vertical operations. The Rutan Boomerang was an asymmetrical twin-engine aircraft introduced in 1996 that featured completely different fuselage lengths and offset engine placements. Designed by Bert Rutan, its unbalanced layout was carefully calculated so that an engine failure would not cause a sudden dangerous loss of directional control. The Rutan Model 61, Long EZ, was a lightweight composite home-built aircraft introduced in 1979, featuring a pusher propeller and a forward canard. By placing the engine at the rear and the horizontal control surface at the nose, its unconventional geometry made the airframe virtually immune to traditional spin entry. The Scaled Composites Proteus was an endurance aircraft built in 1998, featuring a unique tandem wing design with a twin boom tail. Its multi-wing configuration and thin structure were designed to carry varied payload pods high into the atmosphere while keeping stability high and structural weight low. The Scaled Composites White Knight II was a twin fuselage, 4-engine aircraft built in 2008 as an aerial launch platform. Featuring a wide central open span between its double fuselages, its dual body layout allowed large payloads or spaceplanes to be carried directly under the center of the wing structure. The Aerospace Line's Super Guppy was a heavy-lift cargo transport built in 1965 with a swollen, balloon-like upper fuselage. To load giant space program rocket stages inside, the entire front nose section was hinged to swing open sideways at a 90-degree angle from the rest of the airframe. The Sikorsky CH-54 Tahi was an open skeleton skycrane introduced in 1962 that completely eliminated a traditional interior cargo cabin. Built around a single structural spine beam, it carried its payloads using an external hoist system or detachable pods slung directly beneath the exposed airframe center. The Piasecki PA-97 Helistat was an experimental hybrid heavy lifter built in 1986 that attached 4 entire helicopter airframes to a massive lighter-than-air blimp envelope. It attempted to combine static envelope buoyancy with dynamic rotor lift to move extreme industrial weights across rugged terrain. The Curtiss-Wright VZ-7 was an experimental aerial jeep constructed in 1958, featuring an open chassis frame with 4 uncovered horizontal propellers. The driver sat directly in the center of the quad propeller grid, using collective propeller pitch changes rather than aerodynamic wings to control direction. The Sikorsky S-72 X-Wing was a hybrid research aircraft developed in 1986, designed to merge rotary flight with fixed-wing jet speeds. It featured a rigid, broad 4-blade main rotor that could stop mid-flight and locked into place, turning the stationary blades into a set of X-shaped wings. The Edgeley Optica was an observation aircraft introduced in 1979, built with a bulbous, fully glazed bubble cabin mounted ahead of a ducted fan engine. Its enclosed fan shroud and helicopter-like forward cockpit gave the pilot expansive visibility while keeping engine noise contained. The LTV XE-142 was an experimental Vive stall transport built in 1964 with a high wing that tilted 90 degrees upward. By rotating the entire wing assembly and its 4 interconnected turboprop engines vertically, it could take off like a helicopter before tilting the wing forward for high-speed level flight. The Minier Pou du Ciel was a minimalist French home-built aircraft designed in 1933, featuring a unique staggered tandem wing arrangement. By overlapping 2 main wings closely without a traditional elevator tail surface, its wing geometry created an automatic self-stabilizing effect that prevented pitch stalls. The Alexander Lippisch Aerodyne was an experimental wingless aircraft built in 1972 that generated all its lift through internal airflow. It used 2 internal coaxial fans housed inside a hollow fuselage duct, directing fan thrust downward through bottom flaps to hover without external wings. The Lockheed XFV-1 was an experimental tail-sitter fighter constructed in 1954, designed to launch straight up from small platforms. Built to sit vertically on 4 tail fins mounted at the rear of the fuselage, it attempted to eliminate the need for traditional flat runways or aircraft carrier flight decks. The Flettner FAL 282 Colibri was an early German syncropter built in 1941, featuring 2 main intermeshing rotors mounted side by side. Its dual rotor shafts were angled outward and geared together to mesh like egg beater blades, eliminating the need for an anti-torque tail rotor. The Custer Channel Wing was an experimental aircraft built in 1953 that featured semicircular upward curves built directly into the wing panels. By mounting pusher engines inside these semicircular troughs, the propellers drew air rapidly across the curved channel surface, creating high lift even while standing still. The Kamov Ka-22 Vintokryl was a massive Soviet compound rotorcraft built in 1959, featuring large airplane wings with rotors mounted on each wingtip. In addition to the lifting rotors, it mounted forward-facing turboprop engines at the wing ends, combining helicopter vertical lift with airplane cruise propulsion.